joined now by private investigator and retired Romulus police detective Dwayne DeCaries. Great to have you with us. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Glad to be here.
So you worked this case pretty much from the beginning. How did you become involved? Because Raven was actually missing out of Detroit.
Before we actually got involved in our unit, we always follow up on a lot of various things, watch a lot of the news, and get hints there and there, here and there. And for the 3 or 4 days or a week or so prior, there was it was always put on the news that this young uh, lady was been kidnapped, is missing out of Detroit. Um, and then on the morning that we got called, gentleman was out cut. It was out in a rural part of Romulus, and he had was out there bushwhacking and cutting the high grass over there. Came upon something that he thought might have been an animal carcass or something. He went and checked into it, and he believed that it was a human body that had been burned. He called our department. Patrol officer went out there. The female patrol officer that arrived, she locked everything down, called us at the detective bureau. I went out myself. I was the first detective on scene. And because of the numerous times I had watched the video, and there was just pieces of the scene that led to, there was no doubt in my mind when I first arrived there, what I was looking at was the remains of the young lady that was missing out of Detroit.
You know what's so heartbreaking about this to me is to think that he didn't even recognize her as a human being. He didn't even know it was a little girl.
Well, the person we had of interest was, um, it was really hard to describe. I was involved in this case from the get go, from start to finish. Um, Many of those of us that work this case, it's that case that you hear officers say that there's always that one that you'll take with you, as especially as detectives. We work so many major cases, and there's always those. There's you hope not to get that one that sticks with you for the rest of your life. This one is, but yeah, to find. It wasn't until I actually spoke with the person of interest that we had that I realized what I was dealing with, as far as uh, hard to even say that it was a human being. It was somebody that was cold, calculated, and I was interviewed on this case while we were investigating it, and I'll never forget that I had just told them that was the most um, evil person I'd ever met in my career, and I've met many, and but this was a person, true person that was just truly evil.
That says a lot because, like you said, you interviewed a lot of bad people. If we can back up to the day that you're called into the investigation, from a detective standpoint, can you walk us through the steps of how an investigation works? Where do you start?
Well, I have to say that under this investigation, it made it a little bit easier. And again, until we got DNA um, confirmation and things of that nature, but there was just things about the body that I looked at and I investigated that. So we were able to link that, okay, there was a missing person out of one city, and we have recovered that missing person in our city. So we were able to contact that jurisdiction, um, and let them know that we believed at that time, all the evidence showed that we had their missing person. So it made it a little bit easier to generate assistance. Detroit was involved in the instance of it. They did their interviews, they did their polygraphs and everything. Then they called in the FBI. They did their thing. So it gave us a chance to beat the bushes a little harder. We canvassed Detroit and that neighborhood many, 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 many times. We executed search warrants on the person of interest's home for evidence. We also did a search warrant for his vehicle that was in Detroit police impound. We actually took possession of that, sent it to the Detroit crime lab to go through it for us before anything had been touched. Um, so we were able to take it to another level, um, including some other a couple other search warrants we did, even on the person of interest for um, evidence.
So tell us a little bit more about the person that became the main suspect.
Once we really started digging into the circumstances, where he lived, where he worked, um, the circumstances would show that where he lived and where he worked, the place to where the body was recovered was right in the middle. It'd be like him driving from one street down to the other, and it's right in the middle. Personally, I'm not a person that believes in coincidence, but he always had an answer for why at the crime scene. Yeah, maybe there's a tire track, maybe there's a cigarette butt, things to that nature. But there was, in our estimation, there was a lot of circumstantial evidence.
I know it never came out in the middle of this case and at the height of the case, but both of her brothers were drug dealers. They were small time drug dealers, and that had a connection to the suspect. And when it comes to the underground world of dealing with the drug industry and the people involved in the drug world, does that make this case so much harder to try to put the pieces together because there's illegal activity going on?
Well, that was the our prime person of interest was was involved in the drug world. He was purchasing narcotics from um, her brother, and there was an instance where there was some arguments and stuff. But they also knew that this guy could be, he had a violent side. He was able to scare some people. There were some threats made, but that also because we just could not believe in the neighborhood. We weren't able to find anybody. Not that they didn't cooperate, but there was a lot of, I didn't see anything. I don't know. We even interviewed the kids that Raven played with. And it wasn't so much the children that didn't want to talk to us. It was the parents that didn't want them to talk to us.
It's all these years later, still no justice for Raven, and he's still out there. He still lives in the community.
I'm hoping, even though this has opened up, some old wounds, say so to speak. Maybe with this getting reposted, or me actually, maybe knocking on some doors and saying hello. Do you remember me?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Maybe it'll stir the pot a little bit, and we can find that one witness.
All these years later, maybe that's exactly what it's going to take, and she deserves it. She's an innocent little girl.
She had no idea of why. She had no idea of maybe a dispute that was going on between her brothers and her person of interest. Um, there's some other things involved in this person of interest to lead, again, that would lead us and be able to show circumstantially how his thought process works, who he likes, who he doesn't like, what was going on, what was the um, issues between the brothers, what we cause. You're always looking for that motive. What was the motive for somebody to go after this young lady in that, to where you would kill somebody and then burn the body to destroy evidence? Um, just it, that would be part of the circumstances of the motive. Who had the motive to do this? This wasn't just somebody that kidnapped a little girl walking down the street. That whole area, the kids played together and everything. Circumstances of the person of interest knowing her, she's comfortable with him. He has a dog. All the little pieces of the. I always like to say, investigations are a piece is a puzzle, and you put the puzzle together, and This one, we had the whole puzzle just put together out of 1,000 pieces. And it's that one little piece that we were just missing right in the middle.
Hey listeners, do you have questions, comments, or think you may have the key to solving this week's case? We want to hear from you.